Dear viewers, in this video I will discuss a fascinating local economic development case situated in West Nile region of Uganda, which shows how a partnership between government and a private firm can give a big boost to the development of a new economic base in the region. It shows successes, but also that sometimes the goal of actors can be too ambitious, resulting in failure. Anyway, the case study shows the complexities with which local economic development practitioners get confronted with. It presents the origins, challenges and successes of a public-private partnership to promote the insertion of beekeepers in a honey export chain. The aim of this video is to unravel these complexities by applying basic local economic development concepts. I use the questions of the case study quiz to structure this video. I have visited the area already before the partnership had been formed, and together with one of my students we wrote a book chapter on this case which forms part of the course readings. The initiative was a combined effort of the government of Uganda, the Arua local government and a private firm called Bee Natural Products. Before the initiative came up, there were years of conflicts, and the government succeeded to negotiate a peace accord to put an end to the extensive rural violence that had shattered the West Nile regional economy. A reconstruction plan was set up to restore basic infrastructure. Under the government's new policy of agricultural modernization, the National Advisory Agency, commonly known as NAADS, stimulated the local identification of priority farm products and the setting up of farmer groups to identify the needs for extension services. NAADS would subsidize private firms and NGOs to provide these services. Local government structures facilitated this identification process. The aim was to look for and exploit opportunities to increase rural income by creating or extending commercial farm enterprises. And the Arua district was one of the first districts in which this new program was launched. Beekeeping was identified as one of the priorities. It is a part-time activity requiring little investment. It can in principle be undertaken by persons of any gender, age or abilities, and as such provides a stable and complementary source of income. In contrast to subsistence wild honey harvesting, the initiative foresaw introducing substantial yield and quality improvement technologies, such as beehives and modern apicultural management. A key ally in this venture was a firm owned by an experienced beekeeper from outside the region who realized the potential of local high-quality honey for exports to the European Union. But to be able to export, one would need to set up a sizable supply chain network around a processing and packaging facility. Bee Natural Products, shortened to B&P, had the ambition to set up such chain network integrating a large number of newly trained beekeepers. In the local context, we see the interplay of factors emanating from different levels. Locally, the initiative formed part of the post-war reconstruction efforts, and local actors and community groups had identified the activity. The National Agricultural Policy and the NAADS program was critical in financing essential startup activities such as training. In 2002, B&P in effect set up a processing plant in Arua and was keen to create a local supply chain network. It became the key actor to implement the NAADS program, from which it also obtained finance. The initiative focused on setting up new beekeeping activities among rural households in West Nile, Nile who would sell their honey and beeswax. It contracted BNP to implement the training program and the formation of beekeeper groups for the purpose of training and as nodes in the new supply chain. The principal bottleneck for rural households was the knowledge of new modern apicultural methods, such as beehives as frames, siting of hives, and how to improve colonization rates, etc. BNP had the required technological knowledge to train newly created farmer groups, but setting up a well-functioning supply chain network is quite a different challenge. The use of informal institutional arrangements that were not always clear to the beekeepers, especially concerning quality grading by BNP, and the lower price offered by BNP as compensation for the services rendered by BNP, in the end turned out to undo the initial success. It ultimately resulted in the company overextending itself, and as rival buyers appeared, it had to close down in 2008. Fortunately, later it was reopened by a new owner. Important secondary bottlenecks was access to microfinance to enable poor households to purchase the modern beehives. The company tried to remedy this, but when NGOs began to offer beehives free of charge and rival traders offered higher prices, beekeepers turned away and refused to sell to BNP, and its scheme ran into problems. Beekeeping was a competitive activity. Favorable economic conditions for beekeeping resulted in high-quality honey. The demand, both domestically and abroad, was growing. And the location of the processing and packaging plant gave beekeeping a big boost, as was the expansion of related and supporting industries, such as the making of beehives, as you see behind me, as well as other equipment. The activity grew in importance, and government gave then priority to training apicultural specialists at the Niabea Training Center, and in 2004 it delivered its first batch of graduates. By 2007, some 37 of them were awarded contracts to provide extension services to farmer groups in the area, thereby creating a vital advanced factor conditions to keep apiculture competitive. The principal drivers of competitiveness were rival traders and buyers who were attracted from elsewhere to come and buy honey in the region. At a later stage, beekeepers from within the region moved forward to honey processing and trade, and thus became new competitors. 8 donors who supported small-scale honey processing contributed to this trend. These factors made it difficult for BNP to continue its multiple roles in capacity building, financing apiculture investment, and at the same time establish a supply chain network for the export of honey. Although wild honey harvesting was a traditional subsistence activity, modern apiculture became a new economic base in the area. BNP had the intention to establish an economic base consisting of international agro-exports, but its plans turned out to be too ambitious. Notwithstanding, within the space of only 5 years, more than 6,000 beekeepers were active in the region. This case study shows you how a local economic development initiative in the end became successful thanks to the combined efforts of a public agency, a local government and a private firm. And although the ambition of BNP to build a large supply chain network turned out to be too ambitious, its efforts nevertheless contributed to the creation of a new cluster of economic activity so much needed in this post-war reconstruction area. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it has enticed you to learn more about local economic development and its initiative to improve income, enterprise and employment in an area.